Hello again, my dear friends. It is so incredibly nice to have you back here with us tonight. You are so very welcome. There is a unique kind of peace that comes with returning to a familiar place, where every garden path, every wooden gate, and every friendly face feels like a warm embrace. When the morning begins with the soft, steady hum of a sleepy summer garden, it reminds us of the beautiful, quiet rhythms of nature that carry on year after year. Go ahead and take a deep, settling breath in, letting your chest lift completely, and then let it out with a slow, gentle sigh. Feel your shoulders melt down into your mattress and let your hands find a comfortable, completely relaxed place to rest. There is nothing else you need to focus on right now, and no more tasks to finish today. The world outside can carry on without you for a while. Tonight is simply a safe space for you to rest and let go. Tonight we're going to join Rosco and friends back home, stepping out into the golden sunshine of a beloved old garden to help a dear neighbour gather the sweetest treasures of the season. So nestle down into the absolute center of your bed. Pull your blankets up nice and cozy. Let your eyes grow heavy and content. And let's step back out into the gentle world of the valley. August had settled over the valley like a long golden sigh. It was that specific stretch of late summer where the days feel slow with warm breezes carrying the scent of ripe, sweet fruit, and where the morning sun doesn't so much rise as it spills thick and amber through the high, tangled canopy of the ancient oaks. Inside the bunny's cottage, the light caught the slow, lazy dance of dust motes suspended in the air, a quiet reminder of how beautifully still a house can be before the world wakes up. Rosco moved through the early kitchen with the quiet, deliberate grace of a creature who measured his mornings in unhurried gestures rather than minutes. He smoothed his coat, pausing for a moment by the open window to let the warm August breeze wash over him. He smiled to himself, thinking how much he truly loved these long, lazy summer days, the kind of days that seemed to stretch out forever, where the only task was to watch the garden grow and share a quiet pot of tea with his friends. He shook the sweet reverie off with a soft blink and turned back to set the copper kettle onto the cast-iron stove, and before long the lid was rattle-tapping its familiar tune. Soon the room smelled of fragrant chamomile blossoms, less of a scent and more of an old familiar comforting blanket. Berry, Caratina and Millie Moonbeam drifted to the table. Their bare toe beans found the patches of floorboards that had been basking in the sun's warmth since dawn, absorbing the deep, radiant heat that only old wood can hold. They held their porcelain cups in two paws, letting the steam feather through their whiskers, listening to the house settle as they sipped contentedly through their curly straws. "Mr. Bramblewick's clover is ready," Rosco said. "The white blossoms have gotten heavy and brown at the edges, and his hives are brimming with the weight of the season. But here's some news to wilt your parsley. His knees are stiff today, the kind of stiffness that comes when the summer clouds bubble and billow with the promise of heavy rain. He needs our paws to help bring the honey harvest in." Caratina reached for their sturdy willow basket, its woven fibres weathered but still sturdy and strong. They stepped out, the latch closing behind them with a solid metallic clunk that sounded like their day had decidedly begun. The lane was a corridor of sleepy late summer abundance. Heavy-headed sunflowers nodded in the faint breeze, their faces turned toward the light, while thick, sprawling borders of purple lavender thrummed with the buzz of bees as they lolloped from flower to flower. As the bunnies moseyed along, their footsteps puffed up clouds of powdery dust that settled back on the lane, like a fresh cotton sheet floating back down on a freshly made bed. Mr. Bramblewick's cottage appeared around the bend, its low thatched roof sitting under the willow trees like one of his nesting hens. There sat the elderly man himself, on a weathered bench beneath a gnarled pippin apple tree, the very same bench the bunnies had helped him mend. He was a fixture of the valley, his linen apron gloriously stained with the delumptious spoils of past harvests: elderberry juice, green walnut hulls, and old wax. He was polishing earthenware pots, his wrinkled hands moving with a slow, hypnotic circularity that had been perfected over decades of identical mornings. He looked up, his eyes crinkling into a warm smile. He gave a slow, rhythmic nod that seemed to say, "Ah, yes, you are here. The circle is complete." The path to Mr. Bramblewick's hives was a cathedral of weeping willow. The long, slender fronds hung down like green cascading water, whispering against Rosco's shoulders as they passed beneath the cool subterranean shade. Here, hidden from the high sun, the air was thick with the scent of damp river moss, the sharp tang of wild mint, and the intoxicating resinous perfume of propolis, the glue of the hives. At the meadow's edge, where the shade scattered into a brilliant sea of white clover, stood the hives. They were 4 silvered cedar towers, greyed by years of winter frost and summer sun, propped up on stout oak legs that sank slightly into the rich black earth. A heavy ambient drone filled the air, not a buzz, but a deep, resonant hum that vibrated in the chest. A lullaby sung by 10,000 pairs of gauze wings. The bees moved like liquid gold through the heavy air, tumbling sleepily from blossom to blossom, delightfully buoyed on the nectar of 1,000 long July days. Mr Bramblewick stepped forward with a slow, reverent gait, lifting a small tin smoker. Inside, dried pine needles and old burlap smouldered with a lazy milk-white smoke that curled upwards into the willow branches. He wafted the smoke over the hive entrances with a gentle, rhythmic puffing. The smoke spoke a silent language, a quiet whisper that told the hive, "Be at peace, pollen gatherers. The autumn is coming, and we are only taking what you can spare." The effect was immediate. The busy rhythm of the hive slowed to a dream-like crawl. The bees tilled sleepily over the thresholds, their wings going still in the warm pine scent. With practiced paws, Rosco helped lift the heavy cedar lid. Beneath it lay the frames, a secret library of gold. Every single inch of the timber frames was packed with perfect, pale wax hexagons, each cell filled to the very brim with clear, heavy nectar that caught the sun like liquid topaz. The bees had capped each cell with a seal of pure snow-white wax, a perfect store for the summer's sweetness. Rosco reached down, his fingers finding the small notch of the first frame. He lifted it slowly, feeling the heavy, satisfying weight of it, the accumulated energy of 1,000,000 flights, held perfectly still in his hands. They carried the frames back to the shade of the pippin tree, where the air was dappled with leaf shadows that shifted across the cedar workbench like sparkling river water. In the centre sat the extractor, a huge, beautiful drum of hand-beaten copper that gleamed with the deep red gold of embers in a hearth. "The caps must come off first," Mr Bramblewick said, handing Caratina a long, broad uncapping knife made of polished fruitwood. Caratina held a knife flat against the comb. With a steady, unhurried stroke, she slid the blade just beneath the white wax seals. As the blade parted the wax from the honey, it made a rhythmic, crisp sh-t sound, like a footstep through dry autumn leaves. The white veil peeled back in one elegant sheet, revealing the glinting, trembling amber beneath. Berry and Millie Moonbeam collected the ribbons of fallen wax, their small paws kneading the warm, pliable material. The wax absorbed the heat of their paws, growing soft and releasing a scent of old honey and sun-baked fields. As they rolled the wax into heavy, smooth balls, Berry found himself remembering the smell of the candle ends Auntie Reenie Nectarine used to save in a tin box by the fireplace, a memory that made his movements even slower, even sweeter. Once the cells were bared, Rosco slid the heavy frames into the wire baskets inside the copper drum. Berry reached for the wooden handle of the crank, his small fingers wrapping around the smooth, oil-darkened wood. He began to turn it. At first the machine resisted, heavy with the weight of the gold within, making a deep metallic rumble that echoed inside the copper wall. But as Berry found his rhythm, the rumble smoothed into a high hypnotic whir, a spinning song that filled the entire orchard. Inside, the honey was flung from its cells, raining against the copper sides with a soft pattering sound, like a summer shower against a window pane. It pooled at the bottom, a deep, silent sea of gold, throwing up a cloud of sweetness so intense it felt as though they were breathing the very heart of the summer itself. Mr. Bramblewick opened the tap at the bottom of the copper drum. A thick, unbroken ribbon of honey began to descend into the stoneware crock. It coiled down in heavy velvet folds like molten glass, before smoothing out into a perfect, mirror-like surface. Mr. Bramblewick dipped a small earthenware jar into the stream, sealing it with a thick disc of cork that went in with a deep, resonant thump. He placed it into Caratina's basket, a honey harvest summer gift. Caratina was thrilled. The walk back to the cottage passed in a comfortable quiet that exists between those who have worked well together. The shadows of the sunflowers had stretched long and thin across the dust, pointing the way home. It was that time of day. The kitchen, now cool and shadowed, was an old friend waiting to receive them. It was time to think about the rumbling in their tumblingtons and prepare for dinner. Rosco struck a match to light the dry hickory knots, ready and waiting in the stove. Soon the room was alive with a deeply nostalgic aroma of roasting roots. Berry sat on his low stool, his paring knife moving carefully through the white flesh of parsnips and the deep orange of winter carrots. They were tossed in a heavy iron pan with coarse salt and rosemary needles, sizzling softly as they met the heat, their edges caramelizing into a rich, savoury sweetness. Caratina dressed the table with their moss-green clay bowls, their glazes thick and uneven, bearing the thumbprints of the potter who had shaped them. In the centre sat the sourdough loaf from Nash's bakery, its crust a deep mahogany that cracked under Roscoe's bread knife, releasing a cloud of sour steaming air from its soft, bubbly interior. Millie Moonbeam steeped the watermint and chamomile, dropping a single heavy dollop of Mr. Bramblewick's honey into the amber liquid. It didn't dissolve immediately. It sank to the bottom like a drop of sun, slowly unravelling and sweetening the steam that rose up to gleeful twitching noses. They ate slowly, enjoying the fruits of their work on their vegetable plot. The parsnips were sweet as apples, the carrots smoky from the iron fire, and the bread, smeared thick with the raw, warm honey, tasted of clover, sunshine, and time itself. When the last crumb had been wiped away and the stoneware stacked, the cottage fell into a deep, velvety silence. The fire in the stove had died down to a bed of ruby coals, casting a soft glow across the thick wool rug. The bunnies moseyed their way to bed, their limbs pleasantly heavy with the beautiful work they had done with Mr Bramblewick, collecting his honey. Berry pulled his green wool blanket up to his chinnigan, the soft wool pressing him down into the mattress. Caratina and Millie Moonbeam let their long ears fall across the cool linen of the pillows, their breathing sinking instantly into the slow, steady rhythm of the valley outside. Rosco breathed the summer air, content that everything was as it should be. The bees were asleep in their silver towers. The honey was safe in the cellar. The hearth was quiet. All was snug. All was well. Night night.